Darius looked at her like she was something he'd accidentally kept too long. Get out. His voice was flat, certain, like he'd been rehearsing it. Essence didn't move. Look at you. He said it slowly, like he wanted her to really hear it. You let yourself go. You're ugly now, Essence. She felt something leave her. Not dramatically. The way heat leaves a room when someone forgets to close a window. Slow. Then all at once. Then gone. I can't do this anymore, he said. I need you to leave. Essence had nursed their third child 4 months ago. Her body still remembered it. He apparently did too, just differently. She packed a trash bag, not a suitcase, a trash bag, because that was how much time he gave her, because her hands were shaking and a suitcase required decisions, and she couldn't make decisions right now. Essence moved through the bedroom grabbing things without seeing them. A sweater, her good earrings, the children's paperwork, because even now, she was still their mother first. 4 minutes. That was how long it took for a marriage to become a bag on a porch. She stood outside her own front door. The neighborhood was quiet. Someone down the street had a porch light on, warm yellow spilling onto concrete. She stared at it because she needed something to look at that wasn't the door closed behind her. Inside, she could hear them. Nadia asking a question. Caleb calling her name. Mama, mama, mama. A small bell that didn't know to stop. Zara wasn't walking yet. Essence pressed her palm flat against the door. Didn't push it. Just held it. Maybe he's right. The thought arrived clean and quiet. Maybe I'm the trash. She called Renelle, her sister. She didn't say much. Just, he put me out. Renelle said, I'm coming. 23 minutes later, headlights swept the driveway. Renelle stepped out still wearing her bonnet and house slippers. Fury so pure on her face it looked almost like peace. She didn't ask questions. She picked up the bag. She looked at her sister. You're not sleeping on anybody's porch, she said. That was all. 3 years had a way of moving like water. Essence was 31 now. She had her credential. Her title, Senior Event Logistics Coordinator, Vantage Global Events. An apartment in Atlanta with a kitchen wall she had painted herself because Nadia asked for dark green, and Essence was learning to say yes to things that made her children happy. She had rebuilt herself in the quiet. No audience, no applause, no one watching except 3 small people who needed her to stay standing. So she stayed standing. She had also made a private decision, never written down, never spoken aloud. She was not going to try again. She could not afford another wrong door. Some women got second chances that felt like gifts. She had made peace with the possibility that she was not one of them. Peace was what happened when you ran out of the energy to want differently. Then Seoul came. The assignment arrived on a Tuesday. Vantage Global's first major Korean contract, a 3-day luxury hospitality showcase at a property called Jiho Holdings. She was chosen because she read briefs completely, because she researched cultural protocols before arriving anywhere, because she could manage 3 simultaneous crises without her voice changing. Her reaction was not excitement. It was calculation. She sat at her desk and made a list. Childcare for 3 weeks, Nadia's school schedule, Caleb's Tuesday speech therapy, Zara's daycare drop-off. Her mother Claudette would manage most of it. Claudette, when told, said, You're going to Korea. Not a question. Not enthusiasm. Just Claudette naming things flatly before she made food. She pressed a container of stew chicken into Essence's hands at the door, held them there a moment, looked at her daughter with eyes that carried more than her mouth had ever learned to say. Don't forget to eat, she said. In their language, that was love. At the airport, Zara wrapped both arms around Essence's leg and refused to let go. Essence crouched down, looked her daughter in the face, 4 years old, crayon-stained fingers, eyes that trusted without condition. I'll be back before you even miss me, Essence said. Zara considered this with great seriousness. Then she reached up and tucked something into her mother's jacket pocket. Stepped back, satisfied. Essence didn't look at what it was. She was already managing the next thing. The hotel room was on the 14th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul spread below her, light and height and distance, more beautiful than she expected, somehow lonelier for it. She stood at the window a long time. Don't mess this up, she whispered. She meant the contract. She mostly meant the contract. Her hand drifted to her jacket pocket, Something was there. She pulled it out. Zara's drawing. Crayon on torn notebook paper. 4 figures holding hands. Tall, medium, small, smallest. Beneath them, in Nadia's careful handwriting, 3 words. Come home, Mommy. Essence stood in a hotel room in Seoul and felt the full weight of everything she was doing this for. She smoothed the paper carefully, set it on the nightstand where she would see it first thing in the morning. Then she lay down, still dressed, shoes still on. Let the city hold its breath around her. She didn't know yet what was coming. She didn't know that someone in this city was about to look at everything Darius called ugly. Every stretch mark, every extra pound, every part of her that had given and been punished for it. And call it the standard. She only knew she couldn't afford to break. Not here. Not now. Not again. Jiho did not waste time. This was something everyone who worked for him understood within the first week. Meetings ran short. Decisions landed fast. If you came to him without a solution, you had better come with a very good question. His office on the 34th floor reflected this. No photographs, no personal objects. A desk, a chair, a view of Gangnam that most men would have framed and admired. Jiho used it to think. The city below was just space, something to look at while his mind worked. His Tuesday had already included 4 meetings, 1 acquisition decision that his team spent 3 weeks preparing, and he resolved in 4 minutes, and a call from his father he did not take. There was also a note from Chairman Bayek about an upcoming dinner. Jiho read it once, set it aside, did not respond. He knew what the dinner was. Bayek had a daughter, educated, appropriate, quietly positioned in Jiho's direction for 2 years now. The dinner was not a dinner. It was a new arrangement wearing a dinner's clothes. Jiho had not yet decided how to refuse it without dismantling a relationship his grandfather spent 40 years building. Some problems required patience. He was a patient man. The call came at 4:37, catering collapse. The hospitality showcase, his company's most visible event this quarter, was 40 minutes from opening, and the primary vendor had failed a health inspection that afternoon. His events manager was relaying information faster than solutions were arriving. Jiho was already moving. He took the elevator down expecting to find chaos. He found something else instead. A woman standing in the center of the venue speaking Korean into her phone. Her Korean was careful, researched, not fluent, but precise. The kind that came from someone who had studied the language out of respect rather than necessity. She had a clipboard in one hand, and her eyes were moving across the room the way a general reads a battlefield. 2 calls simultaneously, hand signals directing a staff member to the left without breaking her sentence. A quiet word to a vendor that made him nod and move faster. The room was not chaotic around her. It was reorganizing. Jiho stopped. He stood near the entrance and watched her work. She hadn't noticed him. She was too focused. There was something falling from her jacket pocket. A small piece of paper, folded, covered in crayon. She didn't notice that either. He almost said something. He didn't. The event opened on time. Every guest was seated. The evening moved the way these evenings were supposed to move. Invisibly, smoothly, as though nothing had ever threatened it. Jiho watched that too. The venue team held a small informal dinner afterward. Coordinators, vendors, the Vantage Global staff, standard courtesy. Nothing formal. Jiho attended briefly. He rarely did. That evening, he did not examine why he made an exception. He sat at the far end of the table, quiet, observing. The way he always was in rooms full of people performing ease. Essence was 3 seats away. She was talking to one of his junior coordinators. Something about the venue's loading schedule, the timing of the vendor entrance, a small logistical detail that should have been boring. His junior coordinator said something. Essence's response was dry and precise and apparently very funny, because the coordinator burst out laughing. Then Essence laughed too. Not a polite laugh, a real one, unguarded. It came from somewhere genuine, and it changed her face completely. Opened it up in a way that had nothing to do with professionalism or composure. She caught it almost immediately, pressed her lips together, looked back at her notes. But it was too late. Jiho had seen it. Something moved through him before his discipline caught up. Brief, specific, gone before he could name it. He looked back at his phone, said nothing, stayed 12 more minutes and left. That night, he approved the second contract with Vantage Global Events. He requested continuity of personnel. His team did not question it. They rarely questioned his operational decisions. He was precise, and he was usually right, and the reasons behind his choices tended to reveal themselves in time. He did not examine his own reasons too closely. He simply approved the contract and closed his laptop and sat in his office longer than usual. She had sent a professional voice note through the event liaison channel. 30 seconds. Logistics update. A clean summary of what had been resolved and what still needed follow-up. He played it once. Then he played it again. Her voice was low and unhurried. She spoke the way she worked. No wasted words. No performance. Just the thing itself. Delivered clearly, and then silence. He sat there after it ended. His assistant walked in to collect evening documents, stopped in the doorway, registered that Jiho was simply sitting in a dark office doing nothing, and quietly left without saying a word. 8,000 miles away, Essence was on the phone with Renelle. They extended the contract, she said. 6 more weeks. Renelle made a sound that was half shriek, half prayer. God is moving, Essence. God is literally moving. It's just a contract, Renelle. It is not just a contract. Say thank you and receive your blessing. Essence smiled, small and private, the kind of smile that didn't need an audience. She ended the call, stood at her hotel window. Seoul was doing what Seoul did at night, glittering without apology, enormous and indifferent and alive. She thought about the evening, the collapsed catering, the 40 minutes, the way she had moved through the crisis, the way she moved through all of them, by narrowing her focus until there was only the next problem and the solution to it. She thought briefly about the man she had seen near the entrance, watching. She didn't know who he was. She had registered him the way you register a presence that is too still for a busy room. Dark suit, quiet face, eyes that didn't move the way curious people's eyes moved. He wasn't looking around. He was looking at one thing. She had assumed he was a guest. She pushed the thought down, went to wash her face, thought about Nadia's school schedule, Caleb's appointment, Zara's drawing on the nightstand. But somewhere between the window and the bathroom, she caught herself wondering what his name was. The thought surprised her. She let it go. She mostly let it go. Hey, besties, I'm so glad you're here. These stories exist because you keep showing up, and that means everything to me. Now back to the story. The dinner was not her idea. Jiho Holdings had extended the courtesy invitation to the full Vantage Global team. Standard client relations, nothing formal. Essence almost declined. She had reports to finish and a video call with Nadia at 8, and she was tired in the specific way that had nothing to do with sleep. But her supervisor said go, so she went. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu. Private room, dark wood, soft light that made everything look considered. 6 people around a table that could have held 12. Essence wore what she had, a deep burgundy wrap dress she had packed for client dinners. Her good earrings. She had learned a long time ago how to walk into rooms that weren't built for her and make them forget that. She took her seat, smiled at the right moments, asked questions that showed she had done her research. She was good at this, being present without being too much, taking up exactly the right amount of space. The man across from her was a senior Jiho Holdings executive, Kwan something. She hadn't caught the full name. His wife sat beside him, Choi Yuna. Yuna was elegant the way certain women are elegant, deliberately, carefully, like it was a position she had fought for and intended to keep. She smiled at Essence when they were introduced. Warm enough, curious enough, the kind of smile that watches. The dinner moved well for the first hour. Wine, food that arrived in small, beautiful portions. Conversation about the showcase, the Seoul hospitality market, a new property Jiho Holdings was developing in Busan. Jiho sat at the head of the table. He spoke when spoken to, asked precise questions, gave nothing unnecessary away. Essence was careful not to look at him too directly. She was also careful not to look away too deliberately. She was managing a lot of things simultaneously, as usual. Then Yuna set down her glass. "You have children, yes?" she said, casual, conversational, English precise and unhurried. 3, I think someone mentioned. "Yes," Essence said. 3. "They must miss you." Yuna smiled. "It's so hard being away from little ones. It is, Essence agreed, but they're well looked after. Yuna tilted her head, just slightly. And their father? He is in America? The table didn't go quiet. That was almost worse. Everyone simply continued. Wine glasses lifted. A side conversation resumed on the left, as though the question was normal, as though it landed nowhere. Essence smiled, the specific smile she had learned over years, the one that showed nothing, the one that cost everything. Yes, she said smoothly. He's in Atlanta. She turned to the executive beside her. You mentioned the Busan property. Is that the coastal development I read about in the Q3 report? The conversation moved. Nobody noticed. Under the table, her hand pressed flat against her thigh. Hard. The way you press a wound to stop the bleeding. She felt him look at her. Not then. A few minutes later, she was mid-sentence talking about venue logistics, and she felt Jiho's eyes with the particular certainty of someone who has learned to register being watched. She didn't look back. 15 minutes later, he ended the dinner. The excuse was clean, authoritative. Something about an early call with the Tokyo office. Nobody questioned it. That was the thing about Jiho. When he spoke, rooms simply rearranged themselves around whatever he said. He walked the group to the lobby, brief handshakes, quiet goodnights. When he reached Essence, he paused. I'll walk you to the elevator, he said. It wasn't a question. They walked in silence. The lobby was marble and low light, and the sound of the city muffled behind glass. He stopped at the elevator, pressed the button, stood beside her. You handled that well, he said quietly. You didn't have to. She looked at him then, really looked. His face gave almost nothing. But his eyes were doing something different, something careful and direct that she didn't have a word for yet. I've had practice, she said. The elevator opened. She stepped in. He didn't say anything else, just held her gaze for one moment before the doors closed between them. 4 seconds. That was how long she held it together. Then she pressed her back against the elevator wall and let out one breath that carried everything she hadn't shown at that table. Her eyes burned. She pressed 2 fingers to her mouth. She did not cry. She almost did. She straightened, rolled her shoulders back, looked at herself in the elevator's mirrored wall, burgundy dress, good earrings, eyes that were steadier than she felt. You're fine, she told the woman in the mirror. You're fine. The following Monday, Jiho said 5 words to Yuna's husband in a meeting. Low, calm. The kind of calm that had weight behind it. Essence never heard about it. She only noticed, at the next event, that Yuna's eyes slid past her without stopping, that the careful, watching smile was gone, that something had shifted in the room's temperature without anyone announcing it. She assumed she had misread Yuna from the beginning. She hadn't. She called Renell from the hotel room floor, back against the bed, shoes still on. He walked me to the elevator, she said, and didn't explain who. Renell didn't ask. What did he say? That I handled something well. What did you say? That I've had practice. Renell was quiet for a moment. Then, Essence, you have got to stop making pain sound like a personality trait. Essence opened her mouth, closed it. I'm just saying, Renell continued, softer now. Not everyone is looking for the crack. Some people are just looking. Essence stared at the ceiling. She thought about his eyes in the lobby, what they were doing that she didn't have a word for. She thought she might have one now. He wasn't looking for the crack. He was just looking at her, all of her. She didn't know what to do with that. She wasn't sure she was ready to find out. The call came at 11:14 at night. Essence was at her desk reviewing vendor contracts for the second showcase when her phone lit up. Atlanta area code, Zara's daycare emergency contact. She picked up before the second ring. Fever. 103. The daycare had called Claudette, who had called the pediatrician who had given instructions and medication. But Claudette's voice on the background of the call was tight in the way it got when she was worried, and pretending not to be. Essence was already standing. Put Mama on, she said. Claudette came on the line. She's fine. It broke a little. I just need to know, does she still have that reaction to ibuprofen? Yes. Only acetaminophen. I wrote it in the file, Mama. The blue folder in the kitchen drawer. I see it. Rustling. Okay, I have it. Is she sleeping? Just went down. Okay. Essence pressed her hand flat against the desk. 8,000 miles. 8,000 miles and a 4-year-old with a Fever and a blue folder in a kitchen drawer she could not get to. Call me if it goes back up. Anytime. Don't wait until morning. I know how to care for a sick child, Essence. I know you do, Mama. She hung up. Stood very still in the middle of her hotel room. The vendor contracts were still open on her laptop. The Seoul skyline was still doing its glittering, indifferent thing beyond the window. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Did not fall apart. Falling apart required time she didn't have. So she pressed everything down into the place she kept things, and went back to the contracts and worked until 1 a.m. She had a morning briefing at 8. Before she finally closed her laptop, she sent a brief message through the event liaison channel, rescheduling her 7 a.m. check-in due to a family situation. Professional. 2 sentences. Then she closed her eyes. The knock came at 7:45. She answered the door in her work clothes, coffee in hand, expecting housekeeping. A man stood in the corridor, older, professional, a small bag in his hand. Ms. Essence? His English was careful and clear. I'm Dr. Park. I was asked to check in regarding your daughter's condition. She stared at him. Her name is Zara, he continued. 4 years old. Fever last night. Acetaminophen only due to sensitivity. He opened the bag slightly. I have the correct medication and dosage notes if your family needs them. I can also call the attending physician in Atlanta directly, if that would help. Essence stood in the doorway for a long moment. She looked at the bag, at this man who knew her daughter's name and her allergy, and was standing in a Seoul hotel corridor at 7:45 in the morning. Who sent you? She asked, though she already knew. Dr. Park smiled quietly. I was asked not to say. She found Jiho after the morning briefing. He was in the corridor outside the main conference room, phone to his ear, one hand in his pocket. He saw her coming and ended the call without looking away from her face. She stopped in front of him. The doctor, she said. He waited. You saw my message on the liaison channel. Then you pulled her allergy information from the contract onboarding form, a form I filled out 6 weeks ago and forgot about. He said nothing. Why? She asked. Why would you do that? He looked at her for a moment, steady, unhurried, like the answer was simple, and he was just deciding how directly to say it. Because no one did it for you before, he said, and I find that unacceptable. The words landed somewhere she wasn't prepared for. She opened her mouth, closed it. She almost made a joke, something dry and self-protective about being perfectly capable of managing alone. It was already forming, the familiar armor, the deflection dressed as humor. He saw it coming. Don't, he said quietly. Not unkind, just certain. She looked at him. You were going to say something to make this smaller than it is, he said. I'd rather you didn't. The armor dissolved before she could finish building it. She nodded once. Then she walked away because she didn't trust what her face was doing. 2 days later, she was in a corridor she didn't need to be in. She had taken the long way back from the venue office without fully deciding to, past the window that looked into the east garden, past the small sitting area nobody used. She had her folder and her phone and a reason to be moving in this direction that she couldn't quite name. Jiho was there. He had apparently taken the same corridor for reasons he also didn't explain. They were walking toward each other, and then they were standing still, and the corridor was quiet, and the distance between them was smaller than any professional situation required. Neither of them moved. She could see the exact line of his jaw, the way he held his shoulders, the particular stillness of a man who had decided something and was waiting for the right moment to say it. She was very aware of her own breathing. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Then again, he didn't reach for it. Then his assistant appeared from around the corner, slightly breathless, tablet in hand. Jiho, the Busan call. They moved it up. They're waiting. Something shifted in his expression, brief, almost imperceptible. I'll be right there, he said, quiet, controlled. His assistant retreated. Jiho looked at Essence for one more second. Then he walked past her toward the conference room. Their arms did not touch. There was no reason they should have. She stood in the empty corridor and felt the absence of something that had never officially been there. That night she called her mother, not Renelle, her mother. Claudette answered on the second ring, asked if Essence was eating, asked if she was sleeping, asked how the work was going. Practically, efficiently, love delivered as logistics. Then a pause. Is there a man? Claudette asked. Essence almost laughed. No, Mama. Claudette was quiet. the specific quiet that meant she was deciding something. I know I didn't teach you girls the soft things, she said finally. Low. Careful. Like each word cost her something she had saved a long time. Your grandmother didn't teach me either. But essence. Another pause. Don't close every door. Some doors are supposed to open. Essence sat with that. Claudette, who expressed love as stew chicken in scripture and showing up, who had never once in Essence's memory said anything that naked or that tender. Okay, Mama, she said softly. She didn't know if she meant it yet, but for the first time in 3 years, she didn't immediately decide that she didn't. The meeting room was on the second floor. Essence had been told it was for contract administration, a routine check-in with the Jiho Holdings legal team regarding the second showcase timeline. She had her folder, her notes. She was 7 minutes early because she was always 7 minutes early. The legal team was not there. Chang Sungwoo was. He was older than she expected, 70 perhaps. Slim, upright in the way of men who had decided a long time ago that posture was a form of power. He stood when she entered, gestured to the chair across from him. Miss Essence. His English was precise, measured. Please sit. She sat. He folded his hands on the table, looked at her steadily. My son doesn't request personnel continuity, he said. Not in 6 years of running this company. Until now. The room was very quiet. She understood then. This was not a coincidence. This was not a courtesy. Someone had been watching. Someone had connected the dots she thought were still invisible. And this man, Jiho's father, the company's original architect, had moved before anything had even been declared. She had been targeted, specifically, carefully. She pressed her hands flat against her thighs under the table. The same hands, the same wound, a different room. He did not waste time on pleasantries after that. He simply looked at her with eyes that were very much like his son's, steady, direct, giving nothing away, and began. He was not cruel. That was the thing she would remember afterward. He was not cruel. He was worse than cruel. He was reasonable. He spoke about the company, about the family's position in Seoul's business community, about the particular weight that came with the Jiho Holdings name, the expectations, the visibility, the careful balance his father had built and his son had inherited. He spoke about culture, about the complexity of certain choices, and the people those choices affected beyond the two individuals making them. He spoke about her children, gently. He said they sounded lovely. He spoke about the distance, not just physical, he said, but structural. The kind of distance that didn't close easily no matter how much two people might want it to. You seem like a practical woman, he said finally. I'm speaking to you practically. He was not entirely wrong about the logistics. That was what made it devastating. She sat across from Chang Sungwoo and listened to the architecture of why she didn't fit. And because he was reasonable and calm and not entirely wrong, she couldn't dismiss it. She could only absorb it. She thanked him for his time. She gathered her folder. She walked out. She didn't tell Jiho. She told herself it was because there was nothing to tell, that it was a conversation, that she was a professional, and professionals handled things without creating complications. She told herself that for 2 days. What she actually did was pull back. Shorter responses to his messages, redirected conversations. She showed up to every meeting, every briefing, every walkthrough, present in body, unavailable in every way that mattered. She closed something quietly, the way she had learned to close things, so smoothly that most people never noticed a door had shut. Jiho noticed within 48 hours. Darius messaged her on a Thursday night. She was in bed with her laptop, half working, half watching the rain move across the Seoul skyline when her phone lit up with an Instagram notification. Hey, just checking in. Saw some things online about you being in Korea. I just want to make sure the kids are okay with you being so far away. That's a long time to be gone. She read it 3 times. Each time it landed differently. The first time, concern. The second time, something underneath the concern. The third time, she saw it clearly. It wasn't about the children. The children were with their grandmother, and he knew it. This was about her, about the online things he had seen, about whatever he had put together from Renelle's posts and trade features, and her name attached to something that looked like success. She put her phone face down, didn't respond, didn't sleep. 4 days later, Renelle called, voice tight and careful. So, Darius talked to a lawyer. Essence went very still. About what? About whether being out of the country for extended periods counts as, I don't know, Essence? Some kind of instability thing. For custody. The room was quiet. He didn't file anything, Renelle said quickly. He just consulted someone, but he made sure it got back to you. You know how he does. She knew exactly how he did. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed and felt the two weights settle on her simultaneously. Sungwoo's reasonable voice and Darius's careful cruelty, pressing from opposite directions. Go home, one part of her said. This is too much. This is too complicated. Your children need you present not 8,000 miles away chasing something that was never yours to chase. She sat with that voice for a long time. Then she booked nothing. She held her ground. It cost her a week of sleep. Nadia called on a Sunday morning, 8 years old, unbothered by time zones. Mom, I told Grandma about the man who sent Zara's medicine. Essence closed her eyes. Did you? She said he sounds like someone who pays attention. Nadia delivered this as pure information, the way 8-year-olds deliver things that devastate adults. Is he nice? Yes. He's professional. That's not what I asked. Essence opened her eyes. Nadia. I'm just saying what Grandma said. A pause. The sound of cartoons in the background. She also said, tell you to eat. The following Monday, she arrived at the briefing composed and prepared and gave nothing away. Afterward, Jiho fell into step beside her in the corridor. He didn't ask about the weekend, didn't make conversation. Just walked beside her in the particular silence of a man paying attention to something he wasn't ready to name yet. Then, what changed? Nothing changed, she said. I've just been focused on the showcase timeline. He was quiet. She kept her eyes forward. Essence. Just her name. Nothing attached to it. But the way he said it, quiet and direct and without performance, made her chest do something she didn't have permission for. She stopped walking. I'm fine, she said. Everything is fine. He looked at her for a long moment. He knew she was lying. She could see that he knew. He had eyes that didn't miss things, and a stillness that made dishonesty feel more exhausting than it was worth. But he didn't push. He nodded once, slowly, like he was filing something away for later. Like later was something he was certain of. He walked away. That night she stood at her hotel window, Seoul spread below her, lights blurring softly in the evening, rain, the city moving without her the way cities do. She thought about Sungwoo's folded hands, his reasonable voice, the way he had been right about enough of it that she couldn't simply let it go. She thought about Darius and his lawyer, and the specific cruelty of a man who waited until she was 8,000 miles away to remind her how easily things could be taken. She thought about Jiho, saying her name in an empty corridor, like it meant something he hadn't said yet. She pressed her hand to the cold glass. She didn't know if staying was courage or foolishness. She only knew she wasn't ready to leave. And for now, in this city, in this rain, that was enough. The call from her firm came on a Wednesday morning. Essence was between meetings, coffee in hand, moving through the Jiho Holdings lobby when her supervisor's number appeared on her screen. She stepped outside. The Seoul air was cool and sharp. We have a problem, her supervisor said. The vendor partnership Vantage Global depended on for Korean operations had withdrawn. Quietly. Effective immediately. No formal explanation. Just a short email and a disconnected line when they tried to follow up. Essence stood on the pavement outside the Jiho Holdings tower and felt the ground shift slightly beneath her. How bad? She said. Bad enough. The second showcase is in 11 days. We need a replacement vendor confirmed in 4 or we start losing deposits. I'll handle it, she said. She went back inside and handled it. She spent the next 2 days making calls she shouldn't have had to make, pulling contacts she had built carefully over years, speaking Korean into her phone, with the focused precision of someone who understood that how you asked mattered as much as what you asked for. She found a replacement vendor by Thursday evening, smaller than the original, better, actually, more flexible, more communicative, more invested in getting it right. She filed the updated contracts, sent the confirmation to her supervisor, poured herself a glass of water, and sat at her desk in the quiet. She had handled it, alone, the way she handled everything. She didn't know yet that Jiho had already known about the withdrawal for 36 hours. He told her on Friday. They were in a working session, just the two of them and a table full of timeline documents. When he said it, calm, direct, the way he said everything. The vendor situation. I traced it back to Chairman Baek 2 days ago. I've dealt with it. Essence looked up from the documents. I've also dealt with Baek directly, he continued. It won't happen again. The room was very quiet. You knew, she said. Yes. For 2 days. Yes. She set down her pen, looked at him carefully. Something was moving through her that she needed a moment to identify. And you didn't tell me, she said. I wanted to resolve it before. You didn't tell me. Her voice was still even, still controlled, but it had an edge now that hadn't been there before. I spent 2 days solving a problem that you already knew the source of. I made calls. I pulled contacts. I found a replacement vendor on my own because I thought. She stopped, took a breath. I thought it was mine to solve. He was watching her carefully. It was mine to solve, she said. It was my contract, my professional situation, and you took that from me without asking. I was trying to protect. I know what you were trying to do. She stood, not dramatically, just clearly. I am not a problem to be managed. I have been managed before, by someone who also thought he knew what was best for me, without asking. I will not do that again. She gathered her documents. I'm not him, Jiho said quietly. She stopped at the door. I know that, she said. But right now it felt the same. She left. She didn't go to dinner that evening. She ordered room service she didn't eat and sat on the hotel room floor with her back against the bed and called Renelle. She told her everything. Sungwoo, Darius, the vendor crisis, the rupture, the apology she hadn't let him finish. Renelle listened without interrupting, which was how Essence knew it was serious. Then, what did he say when you left? He said he wasn't Darius. And? That was it. I didn't let him say more. Renelle was quiet for a moment. Essence. How many men have ever said that to you and meant it? She didn't answer. How many men, Renelle continued, have ever sat still while you were angry and not tried to talk you out of it? She still didn't answer. I'm not telling you to forgive him tonight, Renelle said. I'm just asking. When is the last time a man said he would do better and you actually believed he meant it? The hotel room was quiet around her. She didn't have an answer for that either. He knocked on her door at 9:30. She almost didn't open it. She opened it. He stood in the corridor in the same clothes from the working session. He looked, not undone exactly, but less composed than she had ever seen him, like he had been sitting somewhere for hours deciding something and had finally decided. I'm not going to ask you to forget it, he said. What you said was right. I made your decision for you because I couldn't stand watching you carry something alone that I could have removed. That's my flaw. Not my intention, but still my flaw. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching him. I grew up in a house where problems got solved quietly, he said, before anyone had to feel them. I thought that was care. I'm understanding now that it isn't. Always. He looked at her steadily. I'll do better, he said, if you'll let me. She studied his face for a long moment, the specific stillness of it, the way his eyes held hers without flinching and without performing. He meant it. She could see that he meant it, and she had enough experience with men who didn't mean it to know the difference. Okay, she said quietly. Not forgiveness fully, not trust completely. Just, okay. A door left open instead of closed. It was enough for tonight. He nodded once, started to turn. She stopped him. How did you know about Beck? He turned back. He's been positioning against certain decisions of mine for a while, he said. This one was personal. It won't happen again. She looked at him. What did you do? I handled it. Then quieter. You won't have to. A pause, small, charged. Chang Jiho. She heard herself say it before she decided to. His full name, both parts, like something that had been sitting in her mouth for weeks and finally found its way out. He went very still. She felt it immediately. The shift in the air, the way his eyes changed, the sudden awareness of what she had just done. She had used his name. Both names. The way you say someone's name when they have become real to you. Something moved across his face. Not a smile. something quieter and more permanent than a smile. "Good night," she said, quickly, steadily. "Good night," he said. He left. She closed the door, stood in the dark of her hotel room, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, Seoul kept moving, indifferent and luminous and completely unbothered by the fact that something had just changed in a 14th floor hotel room without anyone's permission. She pulled in a long, slow breath. It didn't help. The industry event was not supposed to matter. A quarterly hospitality forum, panels, networking, the kind of room where people exchanged business cards and said things they didn't mean with great confidence. Essence was there representing Vantage Global. Jiho was there because the forum was hosted at a Jiho Holdings property, and he appeared at these things briefly, said what needed to be said, and left. She had worn her good dress, deep navy, simple. She had stopped apologizing for how she looked in things a long time ago, not because the voice was gone, but because she had gotten better at not listening to it. She was standing near the window with a glass of water when the journalist approached. Young, recorder already in hand, the kind of eager that hadn't yet learned the difference between a question and a weapon. "Mr. Chang." He had angled toward Jiho, who was standing 2 feet from Essence. "Can I ask? There's been some industry interest in your—" A pause. Deliberate, eyes moving briefly to Essence and back. "Professional associations, particularly regarding the Vantage Global Partnership." Jiho looked at him. "Some people feel the partnership is unconventional," the journalist continued, "given the profile of the personnel involved." The room didn't go quiet, but something in the air shifted. Essence felt it. The familiar shape of a moment designed to reduce her. She was already reaching for the smile, the redirect, the armor she kept close. Then Jiho spoke. "Say what you mean," he said, quiet, controlled. The kind of controlled that had weight behind it. The journalist blinked. "I just meant that some observers feel that the choice of coordinator is unexpected, given what, exactly?" It wasn't a question. It was an invitation to finish a sentence the journalist suddenly didn't want to finish. Silence. Jiho looked at him for a long moment. Then he looked at Essence. Really looked. The way he had been. Looking at her since a catering collapse in a venue she had saved with Korean, she had studied out of respect. He turned back to the journalist. "Her body carried 3 children," he said. Calm, clear, each word placed deliberately. "Her skin is exactly what it is. Her face has never needed your approval, or mine." A pause. "I don't find her impressive despite any of that. I find her impressive because she has never once apologized for any of it. I have been waiting my entire life to meet a person who didn't." The recorder was still running. Nobody in the room moved. Essence did not move either. She stood very still with her glass of water and felt something shift inside her chest. Deep and structural. The way things shift when a weight you have carried so long you forgot. It was there. Is finally, quietly, set down. She found the hotel bathroom 20 minutes later, stood at the sink. Cold water on her wrists, the mirror showing her a woman in a navy dress with eyes that were doing something she couldn't stop. She cried. Once. Fully. The kind of crying that had nowhere to hide because there was nobody to perform composure for. Not from sadness. From the specific relief of a wound being healed in public by someone who didn't have to and chose to anyway. She pressed a folded paper towel to her eyes, looked at herself in the mirror. "Okay," she told the woman, looking back. "Okay." She was heading back to the main hall when Jiho's mother found her. Yuna was waiting near the corridor entrance. Small, composed, dressed simply in a way that suggested she had never needed to try hard. She looked at Essence with eyes that were nothing like Jiho's. Warmer, sadder, carrying something long and unresolved. "A moment," she said softly, "if you don't mind." They stood together near the window at the end of the corridor, the city below them. Neither rushed. Yuna looked at her for a long time without speaking, not rudely. "The way you look at something you recognize but can't immediately place." Then she said something in Korean. Low. Careful. 3 sentences that Essence couldn't follow entirely. Her Korean reached for professional settings, not for this. But the tone was unmistakable. Something in it was not cold, was not disapproving, was something else entirely. "What did you say?" Essence asked. Yuna smiled, small and private. "Ask my son," she said. Then she walked back toward the main hall and left Essence standing alone at the window, with 3 sentences she couldn't translate and a feeling she couldn't name. He found her on the terrace afterward. Seoul spread below them, evening light pressing gold into the spaces between buildings, the sky wide and slow and burning at its edges. They stood side by side, not touching, close. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I had a brother. She turned to look at him. Jiho. His voice was even, careful, like he was carrying something fragile. He was younger, quieter than me. He used to... A pause. He carried things without saying so. You would only know something was wrong if you were paying close attention. She waited. I wasn't paying close enough attention, he said. I was running the company. I thought I had time. He stopped. I didn't have time. The city burned quietly below them. He died 7 years ago, Jiho said. I have not told anyone what it actually was, what I actually failed to do. He looked at her then. You remind me of him sometimes, he said quietly. The way you carry things, the way you make it look like nothing is heavy. A pause. I pay attention now, to people who carry things quietly. She felt the full weight of that land, not as a confession, as an answer, to every question she had never asked him. Why the doctor? Why the dinner ended? Why he played a voice note twice in an empty office? This was why. I'm sorry about your brother, she said. I know, he said, simply, like he believed her. They stood in the cooling evening and said nothing for a while, and it was the most honest silence she had ever stood inside. Later, Nadia on a video call, bedtime in Atlanta, Zara already asleep in the background. After the pediatrician visit, Essence had passed along the household number for Zara's follow-up care. She hadn't thought much about it at the time. Nadia had apparently thought a great deal about it. Mom, I talked to the man. Essence went still. What man? The Korean man. He called to check on Zara. Nadia delivered this as pure fact. I asked him if he thought you were pretty. Nadia. He didn't even think about it, Nadia said. He just said... She paused, getting it right. Your mother is the standard. She looked at the camera. What does that mean? Essence opened her mouth, closed it. It means something good, she said finally. Nadia accepted this and moved on to the injustice of Caleb eating the last of the cereal. Essence sat with those 4 words long after the call ended. Your mother is the standard. She found him in the venue corridor an hour later. She didn't plan it. She reached past him for a folder on the shelf behind him, a movement that brought her close, closer than necessary, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him in the small space between them. He caught her wrist. Not roughly, not a question. Just stopped her. His hand around her wrist, gentle and certain simultaneously, and the folder forgotten entirely. She looked up at him. He looked down at her. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Neither of them moved. Neither of them looked away. The corridor was empty and quiet, and none of it existed except this. His hand on her wrist and her not pulling away, and the realization arriving slowly and completely that she had no intention of pulling away. His thumb moved, once, across the inside of her wrist. Just that. She felt it everywhere. Essence, he said. Low. Her name in his mouth sounding like something he had been saving. I know, she said. She did know. She had known for a while. She just hadn't been ready until now. She almost booked the flight. 2 a.m. Seoul time, Atlanta departure. One way because she hadn't decided about the return. The browser was open on her laptop, the cursor sitting in the passenger field, and she was sitting cross-legged on the hotel bed in the dark, telling herself this was practical, sensible. The kind of decision a woman who had been through what she had been through made when she was thinking clearly. She wasn't thinking clearly. She called Renelle. Renelle answered on the second ring, which meant she had been awake, which meant she already knew something was happening. Talk, Renelle said. Essence looked at the open browser. I'm thinking about going home. Because of him. Because of everything. Sungwoo, Darius, the children. Because this is... She stopped. Started again. This is not my world, Renelle. This is not a world that was built for me. Renelle was quiet. And he defended you anyway, she said finally. In that world. In front of people in that world. On record. Essence said nothing. What are you actually afraid of? Renelle asked. The hotel room held its breath around her. She looked at the cursor in the passenger field, at Zara's drawing on the nightstand, at the Seoul skyline beyond the glass. Dark now, just lights. Quiet for once. That it's real, she said. Renelle didn't laugh, didn't push, just said, yeah, and? The silence stretched. Essence closed the browser. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Renelle understood. She called her mother in the morning, not to report, not to update, just her mother. The way you reach for something solid when the ground has been uncertain. Claudette answered on the second ring, asked if she was eating, asked about the weather in Seoul, asked how the work was finishing up. Then she stopped. Essence. Her voice shifted, lower, more careful, the voice she used when she was about to say something that cost her something. I want to tell you something. Essence waited. I know I am not. Claudette paused, started again. I know the way I love you girls has not always felt like love. I know I am more stew chicken than soft words, more scripture than sitting with things. Another pause, longer. But I have been watching you for 31 years, and I want you to know. Her voice was very deliberate now, each word carried carefully. I have never once doubted who you are. Not once. Not for a single day. Essence pressed her free hand over her mouth. That man you won't tell me about, Claudette continued. If he sees what I see, then don't you dare run from that. You hear me? She couldn't speak. Essence. Yes, Mama, she managed. Good. A pause. Then Claudette, returning to herself. Now eat something before you go anywhere. Essence laughed, wet and real and completely undignified. It was the best she had felt in years. Renelle called 20 minutes later. 2 things, she said. First, Darius. His attorney thing went nowhere. No filing, no case, nothing. A man poking at something he knew he couldn't win because he needed to feel like he still had reach. Her voice was firm and clear. Your children are fine. They are home. They are loved. That door is closed. Essence exhaled slowly. She hadn't realized how much she had been holding that until it left. Second thing, Renelle continued, I have to say something about this man. Renelle, just listen. I looked him up. I read about his family, his company, all of it. And I need you to know, her voice softened slightly. I am scared for you, Essence. I am. Because you have been hurt, and I was there for that. And I do not want to be there for that again. Essence sat with that. I know, she said. But, Renelle exhaled. But I also know what it looked like when Darius looked at you. And I know what you told me about this man. And those are not the same thing. A pause. They are not the same thing, Essence. Essence felt something settle in her chest. Quiet and certain. I know, she said again. Differently this time. Okay. Renelle's voice went back to normal. Then go get your man. And call me with everything. She arrived at his office at 10:15. His assistant looked up from the desk with polite surprise. Started to speak. I know he's in a meeting, Essence said, calmly. I'll wait. She sat in the chair by the window. 34th floor. Gangnam below her, enormous and indifferent. The city she had arrived in as a woman with a contract and a trash bag's worth of leftover grief. She didn't wait long. The meeting room door opened. Jiho stepped out, saw her. He said something brief to the people behind him. The door closed. He crossed the reception area and stopped in front of her. She stood. They looked at each other. She had prepared something to say, something measured and clear and appropriately paced. She had been composing it since 2 a.m. None of it came. I'm done running from good things, she said. Simple. True. The only words that were actually there. Something moved across his face. Not surprise. He didn't look surprised. He looked like a man who had been certain of something for a long time and was watching it finally arrive. I know, he said quietly. I've been waiting. He reached up and touched her face. Just that. His hand against her cheek, warm and unhurried, the way he did everything, with complete attention and no performance. She leaned into it slightly, without deciding to. He noticed. He always noticed. What happened next was slow and deliberate and entirely theirs. The space between them closing in the way it had been trying to close since a corridor neither of them needed to be in. His forehead against hers first, the warmth of him, the quiet, then less quiet. Then the city below them doing whatever cities do when something important happens in a room above them, continuing, glittering, completely unbothered. The rest belonged to them. Later, much later, they were sitting in the quiet of his office when he said it, unhurried, like he had been deciding when to say it for weeks. My mother, he paused. At the forum, what she said to you in Korean. Essence looked at him. She said, he was careful with it, the way you are careful with something fragile and true. She has already carried enough. Let her put it down here. The room was very still. Essence sat with those words for a long moment. She thought about everything she had carried, the trash bag, the 3 years, the quiet rebuilding, the doors she had closed to protect herself from rooms that weren't built for her. She thought about Hyuna's eyes at the window, warm and sad, and recognizing something. Let her put it down here. She said that, Essence said softly. She meant it, Jiho said. So did I. 3 weeks later, Vantage Global offered her the position, Permanent International Liaison, Korea as her primary territory. Her name on the contract, her terms, her decision entirely. She read the offer letter twice, sitting at a desk in Seoul, coffee going cold beside her. She thought about the girl who had packed a trash bag, who had sat in a driveway for 11 minutes, who had rebuilt herself in the quiet with no audience and no applause, and 3 small people who needed her to stay standing. She thought about Zara's drawing on the nightstand. She signed the letter. Darius saw the announcement on a Friday afternoon, a short industry piece, her name, her new role, a photograph, professional, composed, Seoul skyline behind her. He stared at it for a long time, said nothing to anyone, closed his phone. The weight of what he had thrown away settled on him quietly, the way those things do, not all at once, but completely. The drawing was framed now, 4 figures holding hands, tall, medium, small, smallest, hanging on the wall of a space that was beginning to feel like somewhere she belonged. Nadia had asked, on their first video call after everything, whether the Korean man was going to be around for a while. Essence had looked at Jiho across the room. He had looked back. Yeah, she said. I think so. Nadia had accepted this with the supreme unbothered confidence of an 8-year-old who had already decided she approved. Zara, in the background, held up a new drawing. 2 figures this time, holding hands, one taller than the other. Beneath them, in Nadia's handwriting, she stayed, Mommy. Essence hadn't corrected it. It was close enough. If this story found you at the right time, you know why we told it. For every woman who rebuilt herself in the quiet, who stayed standing when no one was watching, who deserved to be chosen loudly. This one was for you. We'll see you in the next story.